For those of you who may be unfamiliar, Moral Orel is a stop-motion comedy drama created by Dino Stamatopoulos that ran from 2005 to 2008 on Adult Swim. The show is centered around Orel Puppington, an 11-year-old boy who lives in Moralton, State Soda, an extremely religious Protestant town. Orel is a devoted Christian who dedicates himself to following the teachings of the Bible, at least according to his church and his family. He often misinterprets these teachings and hijinks ensue. Moral Orel is a black comedy that tackles religious fanaticism and its consequences across the Bible Belt, and as it goes on, it becomes progressively darker and reveals more and more about the citizens of Moralton. So rather than going through the series in chronological order or hitting the key plot points, I am instead choosing to look at Moral Orel through its key characters, starting with, of course,
even if it ain't, there's room enough to spare.
Orel is moral. I know, right? I couldn't believe it either. Like I said, the show follows Orel's daily life in Moralton as he strives toward being what he's told is a good Christian. He's naive, innocent, and endlessly trusting of authority figures, namely his father Clay and the town Reverend Putty. Throughout the series, this trust is called into question again and again as he sees firsthand the hypocrisy and hostility of his community. For example, in Season 2, Episode 8, The Lord's Prayer, a new family rolls into town who happen to be doppelgangers of everyone in the Puppington family. Orel begins a relationship with his counterpart, a girl named Christina, but his family forbids him from seeing her because her family says the Lord's Prayer differently than they do. In Season 2, Episode 12, Love, Orel adopts a stray dog that he names Bartholomew, and the adults are jealous of his popularity and the joy he brings the children, so they put him down. The dog is also implied to be the second coming of Christ. Anyways, Orel's defining characteristics are his optimism, his dedication to his faith, and his dedication to doing what he's led to believe is the right thing.
Gosh, if Jesus is around and nobody knows it, he'll be all alone on his birthday, and that's just not right.
And these traits are deliberately contrasted with the cynical nature of the town he lives in. Also, their pub is called Forgetty's, owned by Dolly Forgetty, and that's awesome.
When she bats away, I don't know where she goes.
Stephanie is everything the town of Moralton resents. She's an atheist, a lesbian, and she runs a sex and piercing shop, which somehow does pretty good business. Funny how that happens. She's also the warmest, kindest person in the whole show, and one of the only people in town to form a meaningful connection with Orel.
If I get another piercing, how long would it take? Could I be here all day?
Her identity puts her at odds with the town and their values, but Stephanie has something almost no one else in Moralton has: authenticity. When she gives advice, it's out of the goodness of her heart rather than the need to instill Protestant dogma. And her genuine kindness affects those around her, including Orel, as well as her father, Reverend Putty.
I just hope Orel has better luck with love than I did.
You can't compare you and her to Orel and his little Orelette.
Why? Because we're two girls and tolerance is only a pretend theme?
No, because she never cared about you.
Reverend Putty is such a great character, by the way. He's one of the only people that show some semblance of positive growth throughout the series, and he's just really funny.
Come on.
I can't.
Come on.
I think Stephanie is a great representation of the way queer people are treated in religious and conservative towns. There can sometimes be a pervasive sense of shame in these communities, especially pertaining to sexuality, especially pertaining to queer sexuality.
Are you decent?
Hold on. Okay.
Homophobic beliefs or sermons or even legislation will not make queer people disappear. It will only make them hide, or worse, cause them emotional or physical harm. And that harm is not self-contained. It has a ripple effect that spreads throughout our entire society. But we'll get to that later. Nurse Bendy is complicated. When we first see her, she's having an affair with Norm Fakey, the married principal of Orel School. She's seen by the town as a dumb blonde and a slut, objectified and harassed. Nurse Bendy is just going through the motions. She has no interest in her job or even having sex with Fakey, and she resents her reputation.
I feel thoughts of emotions, and I need people to know that.
In Season 3, Episode 4, Alone, we see that in the privacy of her apartment, she acts very differently from the way she presents herself in public. She acts as a loving, doting mother to a family of teddy bears.
We all need people who aren't mean to me, or that don't act like they only care about doing dirty, awful things to you.
Nurse Bendy was sexually abused as a child and then became pregnant, and you can imagine in a town like Moralton, there are very limited options in the event of an unwanted pregnancy, so she gave birth at just 12 years old to a son that was then taken from her. It's not until over a decade later that she's able to reconnect with him. As an adult, she uses age regression to cope with her trauma until that too is taken away from her. This episode is a harrowing depiction of sexual abuse and resulting trauma, and it probably got the show canceled. Moral Orel was always a dark comedy. It always pushed the envelope, and Adult Swim encouraged it. They were cool with it as long as it was funny. There's nothing funny about this. Allegedly, the bigwigs at Adult Swim were uncomfortable with the show's increasingly darker and more dramatic tone, so they pulled the plug. That might seem like a dumb and messed up reason to cancel a show, and it is. Adult Swim was wrong. Sexual assault had been treated as a joke in earlier seasons. There was literally an episode in season 1 where Orel, an 11-year-old, forcibly impregnates the women in his neighborhood. But when the show chooses to focus on the consequences of assault and the impact it has on victims, they can the show. Nurse Bendy was raped and forced to give birth when she was still a child herself, then was barred from raising her son. As an adult, the abuse continues as Fakey harasses her and uses her for sex. She can't turn to anyone else in town for support because they would only judge her. She never had the opportunity to take control of her own life. She had no say in any of it. Purity culture and sexual repression can allow abuse like this to fester, and then victims are shamed and their trauma goes unaddressed. We see it all the time in the real world, even in this show's cancellation.
From the housetops to the gutters.
Bloberta is Orel's mother. As a child, she was neglected by her mother and left out of the family choir.
Why don't you help me out and do something useful, dear? Like clean your room.
Why not?
She develops a drinking problem as a teenager, which she will eventually pass on to her husband Clay.
Isn't drinking a sin?
Jesus drank.
Well, true.
A lot.
When all of Bloberta's friends start getting married, she feels pressured to fulfill society's expectations of her and become a wife and mother.
But even though your current duties may be a little on the trivial side, at least most of you finally carried out your most important duty and gave birth to your husband's offspring.
Her childhood has left her with an intense need to be needed, so when she meets Clay, she manipulates him into marrying her.
It seems all I've been doing since I met you is help and help and help.
In the present, Bloberta has assumed the role of housewife. She spends her days obsessively cleaning her house, feeling unsatisfied and empty. She's distant and detached from her children, Orel and his younger brother Shapey. In season 2, Shapey is mistakenly swapped with his counterpart from Christina's family, and Bloberta doesn't notice until the start of season 3. When she goes to switch the kids back, she ends up with them both. Bloberta was neglected as a child, and she in turn neglects her own children. Her husband Clay can't or won't satisfy her, so she seeks that sense of fulfillment elsewhere. She craves the validation she never got as a child, and her loneliness drives her to seek extramarital affairs. Bloberta and Clay bring out the worst in each other. They stay together even though everyone knows their marriage is a sham. They plan for a divorce in the season 1 finale, but it doesn't last.
Your mother and I have decided to stay together. if only for appearances.
They're constrained by the opinions of others and their own beliefs, and that prevents them from living honestly and finding true happiness. I feel like Bloberta's characterization and backstory is a great commentary on the expectations placed on women and on the idea of generational trauma and the cycle of abuse, which becomes a major theme of the show. Coach Stopframe is an opportunist. Honestly, I was having trouble deciding where to place this section or if I should even have it at all, but in the end I decided to put him right between Bloberta and Clay. It just makes sense that way. Unlike the majority of Moralton citizens, Coach Stopframe is a bisexual Satanist. Does he play bass by any chance? Actually, it's not really accurate to call him a Satanist. He just kind of flip-flops religions based on whichever team's winning. He'll worship whoever as long as it gets him what he wants.
Satan and hell make him call me.
Also, I have to bring this up. Coach Stopframe's voice actor, Jay Johnston, was heavily involved in several aspects of this show. He also was arrested and then pardoned for his participation in January 6th. How can you be involved in a show like this and then go on to be involved in a thing like that? I don't understand it at all. Oh, and by the by, Coach Stopframe is sleeping with Bloberta. In fact, Shapey is his child.
At least you know he's yours.
He doesn't even look anything like me. Who's been inside you?
You are disgusting.
However, his relationship with Bloberta was only a ploy to get closer to Clay. It's Clay he's truly in love with, but for obvious reasons, he's unable to be with him. And you know what they say, speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
I hope I cut myself shaving tomorrow.
Clay is Orel's father, and an abusive alcoholic who takes out his anger and self-hatred on everyone around him. Does he play bass by chance? He's also something of a Tumblr sexy man. I'm not saying I agree, but I do understand. Like most characters in Moral Orel, Clay is both a victim of his environment and an abuser. When he was a child, he faked his death as a prank. The shot caused his mother to have a heart attack, and his father blamed Clay for her death.
You're not even worth it.
It was Bloberta that got him to start drinking as a young adult, and he quickly became a full-blown alcoholic. Clay resents Bloberta, his children, and his life, and he's continuously complaining about his dead-end job.
If I go to work today, I'm gonna kill somebody.
It's not until much later in the show's run that we find out what this job is.
You're the mayor?
Don't remind me.
He's the mayor. His relationship with Orel largely consists of the two spending time together in Clay's study, where he lectures Orel and beats him with his belt. But even though Clay despises his son and physically and emotionally abuses him, Orel unconditionally loves and trusts his father. Their relationship reaches a breaking point in the season 2 two-part finale, Nature. These two episodes serve as kind of the climax of the show and are probably the most important episodes of the series. Clay takes Orel on a hunting trip where he becomes increasingly drunk and frustrated with Orel because he's uncomfortable with the idea of shooting an animal. Clay kills a deer, then a dog, which he eats. At this point, he's wasted and goes on a rant about alcohol and women.
I hate myself.
Why do you quit working on me?
She always fools me, Orel.
I'll make things better, dear. And she chokes me just like every other whore out there.
They're all worthless, kid. Every woman.
All of them want to get you. They just grab you and pull you into them. You sit there for the rest of your life with nowhere to go and no one to be.
Orel is terrified of his father and accidentally shoots Clay's last 2 bottles of liquor. For the first time in the series, he confronts his father directly.
It's because you become a bad person when you drink!
Clay is enraged and tries taking off his belt to beat Orel, but he can't do it, he's too drunk. So he grabs his hunting rifle and shoots Orel in the leg. He blames Orel for getting shot, and instead of treating the wound with Orel's first aid kit, he drinks the rubbing alcohol. And poor sweet Orel has finally had enough.
I hate you.
Hate away, sister. Hate away.
After the hunting trip, Orel asks his mother why she married Clay.
Why not?
It's just that when he drinks, he changes.
Oh, he doesn't change, Orel. That's just his true nature coming out.
Clay is such a well-written and compelling character. He was a victim of his father's abuse, but he grew up to continue that cycle. He spends a lot of time at Forgetty's, the pub, either flirting with Coach Stopframe or trying to goad the other patrons into a fight. Because of his childhood, he sees violence as a source of validation. It's the only time he feels worth it. I've also got to say that Scott Adsit is giving the voice acting performance of a lifetime, and later in the series it really seems like they know what they have with him because they start giving him a ton of monologues and they're all really good. And yeah, he also voiced Baymax. I feel like I have to mention that he also voiced Baymax. In the series finale, Orel, having lost all respect for his father, goes to the one person in town who actually likes Clay, Coach Stopframe. The two bond over the course of the episode, and Stopframe becomes a sort of father figure for Orel. But Orel fails to find anything honorable or likable about his father, and he figures out what's really been going on between Clay and Stopframe.
You like my dad the way my mom likes my dad, don't you?
Your mom likes your dad?
Orel's family comes to collect him, and Clay desperately tries to mend his relationship with Stopframe in another rare moment of emotional vulnerability.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
But it's too late. Stopframe finally sees Clay's true nature. Clay gives up, and the Puppingtons go home. Now everyone is miserable. Nobody wins. Stopframe is heartbroken, Clay has lost him for good, and he has now outed himself to Bloberta. And Orel, of course, has Clay as a father. Clay is a reprehensible character, but he's also just pitiful. He's unable to reconcile his sexuality with the ideals he lives his life by. He's unwilling to accept his identity and make peace with his past, which prevents him from finding any joy in the present. He's thoroughly miserable in all aspects of his life, but rather than look inward, he makes his family and community just as miserable as he is. Of course he's the mayor of Moralton. He's emblematic of the town itself. Something I really like about Moral Orel is that as the series progresses, the town of Moralton becomes a character in the show. In fact, had the series not been cancelled, the focus was meant to shift away from Orel and more towards the town as a whole, and the title of the series would have been changed to Moralton. Looking back, Moral Orel was way ahead of its time, and it holds up really well for the most part, and I think in 2025 it's more relevant than ever. It works as a send-up of religious suburbia, but it's also a hard look at the cycles of abuse and the loss of innocence. And of course, that's not to say that religion has no place in an individual's life. Moral Orel is not anti-religion or anti-Christianity, and neither am I for that matter, but religion shouldn't be used as a tool for punishment. Morality and humanity should never be put at odds, and there's a distinction between being moral and being good, especially when morality is being twisted for selfish reasons. The citizens of Moralton manipulate the Bible to justify their prejudices, even making up their own commandments. For example, adultery is a sin, and yet almost everyone in town is having an affair. That said, I do love this transition.
Oh, God.
Oh, God.
The town is so corrupt that when Jesus Christ returned to earth, they crucified him a second time. I grew up in a somewhat similar town that had churches the size of shopping malls, and as someone who was not Christian, I always kind of felt like I was on the outside looking in. Kind of like I was watching a TV show about a religious town or something. And I think Moral Orel manages to capture something that I've always called the quiet tragedy of suburbia. It's kind of a wordy and pretentious phrase, I know, but I came up with it when I was a teen and it just never really left my mind. Towns like Moralton foster untold suffering that goes on behind closed doors. That's what makes Clay such an effective villain. There are people like him everywhere. There are towns like Moralton all over the country where faith and morality is twisted and used to justify bigotry, abuse, and repression. But repression breeds misery and conformity breeds tragedy, a tragedy that we as a country seem all too eager to continue encouraging and passing on to our children. The citizens of Moralton live by a standard of perfection that none of them are able to reach, which causes widespread hypocrisy, deceit, and resentment. It's not just about religion, it's about conformity, and it harms everyone. Every character feels boxed in and trapped in their marriage, their reputation, their addiction, their job. As seen in the show, true happiness and virtue doesn't come from following the rules the exact right way. It comes from interacting with religion and society on your own terms without allowing your environment to define you. It comes from thinking for yourself, keeping an open mind, and being truly understanding of those around you. That's what makes Orel such an effective hero. His curiosity, his empathy, his unwavering belief in the people around him. It hurts to see him become broken down and disillusioned. In the series finale, we get to see Orel all grown up. He's happily married to Christina, he has 2 kids and a dog that looks like Bartholomew, and we get glimpses of the other Puppingtons' futures through these framed photos. But most importantly, he has a cross hanging on his wall. Orel may have lost his innocence, but he kept his faith. After everything he went through, he was able to break the cycle. Thank you so much for watching this video. Honestly, I feel like I barely scratched the surface on this show, so I would really encourage you to watch it for yourself. But if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you liked me, be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you want, you can even turn notifications on so you'll be the first to know the next time I'm misinterpreting the good word. You can also click the join button here on YouTube to become a member, or join my Patreon. You get a bunch of perks, including exclusive content, and I would really appreciate your support. Anyways, that's going to be all from me. I've got to go take my son on a hunting trip. Bye!